जब पेरेंट्स आपके पास आते हैं तो आप उनको क्या एडवाइस देते हो?
There are certain clear-cut recommendations. Any child who is less than 2 years, screen time should be zero.
Zero.
Absolutely zero. And the most important thing, if you really want to cut down the screen time, is
Kid is watching the iPad and having their meals.
child's relation with the food is disturbed. He can overeat also and become obese.
20, 30, 40 years ago, raising a hand was not very uncommon,
Studies have been conducted. The children who have been constantly being beaten up, bashed up, so these type of children, once they grow up, they are fearful. Their view of the world is that it is an insecure, aggressive place. They also beat their children or their wives once they grow up. The best way to discipline, or the best way to punish for that matter, is
bad touch, good touch. What is a appropriate time then to introduce these concepts?
my child is sexually abused outside. So there are certain cues I will like to tell. Number one, what the gardener parent do is that they provide support, enthusiasm, praise, and all the tools for the success, and leave the child. Now, what a carpenter parent does is he fixes the frame in a very rigid way. Functional MRI, you can see the structural changes in the brain once the behavior of the parents is changed to the positive parenting.
How much emphasis should parents be placing on academics from a young age?
AI coming in, so after a decade, academics will lose further its importance. So what you will be needing will be creative independent thinking, entrepreneur spirit, problem solving skills. ये सबसे कॉमन क्वेश्चन है जो हम लोग क्लिनिक्स में फेस करते हैं कि डॉक्टर साहब ये खाता नहीं है. In fact, the child is eating well, but there are certain factors which the mother ignores. So number one is that
Does my child have ADHD? Even autism?
every child should be screened for autism at the age of between 18 to 24 months. So where the parent should get worried, here comes the thing.
वेलकम रवि अंकल टू ह्यूमंस बॉम्बे. मैं तो आपको रवि अंकल बुलाती हूँ.
Thank you so much, Karishma. It is a proud privilege to be here. Yeah.
But how many children call you Dr. Uncle?
Plenty of them.
Plenty.
So I've been practicing for more than 3 decades. So lot of children. And now when I started my practice, now they have grown up. Now they have their own children.
Oh my
So,
God.
that way.
या तो मैं आपकी लिस्ट ऑफ अचीवमेंट्स पढ़ रही थी. सो देयर सो मेनी. यू आर अ को-ऑथर. आप इतने पैनल्स, इतने बोर्ड्स पे बैठते हो. यू वन सो मेनी अवार्ड्स. बट इज इट स्टिल वही फीलिंग जो रिवॉर्डिंग है कि जो अभी आपने कहा कि आई हैव सीन देम एज किड्स और ना उनके बच्चे हैं?
Yeah, it is really बहुत अच्छा लगता है जब ये बच्चे बड़े होते हैं, आप उनको देखते हो and they achieve success in life, they become happy, so you enjoy that. And moreover, Karishma, what I have experienced over last 3 decades is that parenting is a subject which really takes a backseat. Even the doctors, they are not well attuned with the subject of parenting. And I think it is one of the most rewarding subject, because if you are skilled in this subject, then you produce a human being who is happy, successful, and a good citizen. But if you mess up with the subject of parenting, then probably you leave a human who is anxious and maybe not happy and successful also. So it is very important to be attuned with this subject.
What you said is so interesting, to be skilled in parenting. क्योंकि लोगों को लगता है we've given birth, we are parents, but it's actually a skill that you hone, which I think now a lot of people are talking about. क्योंकि वो जो pass on होता था, खुद के trauma, खुद के जो insecurities थे to your children, now parents are trying to correct that. तो we'll start with that. जब parents आपके पास आते हैं तो आप उनको क्या एडवाइस देते हो कि उनके बच्चे को कैसे रेस करना चाहिए आज के जमाने में?
I will be honest with you, Karishma. We pediatricians are so busy in our clinic with ventilators, preterms, typhoids, infections. So we hardly get so much of time to discuss about the parenting subject. So, but generally, I give message to them that they should do the positive parenting. So there are certain points which I will like to emphasize for positive parenting, that they should give unconditional love. They should be a good role model for the child. Supposingly a mother who wants the child's screen time to be cut short, she should cut short her screen time also. So it is very important to be a role model, because children are going to learn what they see, not what you preach. So it is very important. And then they should also be empathetic. They should have authoritative type of a parenting, which is a democratic type of a parenting, where the decision of the child is also taken into consideration. Mother decision, it is a kind of a collaborative parenting. So these are some of the messages, and very important messages, that they should develop faith in the parents. Faith and trust in the parent, and that kind of a bond is extremely important in parenting. So these are some of the messages of parenting which I tell to my patients.
Screen time is very important now, because I've seen babies who are 8 months, 1 year, who are very much understanding what's going on the screen, and like at 2-3 years know how to use the phone, know how to use the iPad. What is the balance with screen time? Hi guys, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, but I'm going to stop you here because I've noticed that so many of you watch our podcast but don't subscribe. So please pause this video here and go and hit that subscribe button, because it really helps us grow. And with your support, we want to bring you many more fantastic conversations. Thank you. And with that, let's get back to the podcast. What is the balance with screen time?
You know, there are certain clear-cut recommendations. Any child who is less than 2 years, screen time should be 0.
0.
Absolutely 0. Less than 2 years. Beyond 2 years, 1 to 2 hours of screen time can be allowed, but that includes TV, every kind of screen. Maybe computer, TV, mobile, everything. Not more than 2 hours in any way. And Karishma, it is so shocking that according to CDC study in 2023, 7 hours are spent by a child in US on screen every day.
7 hours?
7 hours.
Oh my God.
And it is a study by CDC. So it is really quite alarming. And we should cut down the screen time. And the most important thing, if you really want to cut down the screen time, is that mother should also cut down the screen time. Screen should not be available in every room. It is very important. And the most important thing is that we should bind the child in a kind of a routine where child hardly gets any time for the screen. So the day should be bound in the routine, like school time, play time, extracurricular activity time, singing, dancing, blah, blah, blah. So by that, the child will be away from the screen. So it is extremely important. And especially on 2 occasions, there should not be any screen: mealtime and when the child is sleeping.
I was just going to ask you, the most common association of a child and screen is food. That they will not eat without that iPad being on, or that Peppa Pig, or whatever is going on in the kid universe right now. But that is the most common time that you see, even now when you go for breakfast or lunch, you see the parents are eating and the kid is watching the iPad and having their meals. No judgment to anybody, but why should this association be cut? Or wo kaise karte hai?
This association should be cut, because once we are giving the screen to the child along with the food, number one, the child's relation with the food is disturbed. Child doesn't enjoy the food. Moreover, at times child can overeat also and become obese. The child is seeing the screen and the child is mindlessly, the child is eating. The child can become obese. And obesity is also a very common problem these days. Almost, you can say 1 out of every 4 child is either overweight or obese. So it is also taking an epidemic proportion. So it is extremely important to cut down the screen time during the feeding time.
But when you reverse it, right? Supposing, a lot of parents are very fortunate to have help, but there are parents who don't have help. And it almost seems like a easy fix the screen to some parents. So what would you say to them, where they're just trying to get a breather, or they're just like, I don't know what to do, और वो screen के साथ ही चुप रहेगा, तो let me give that.
There should be a shared parenting. Parenting is not the subject matter of only the mother. The father should also help in parenting. So 50-50% if we divide, then we can increase the time spent by the parent with the child. So the only answer to this is that parents should spend more time with the child, and they should be available with the child, and mother should also cut down the screen time. Parenting is all about sacrifice. So it is very important. The parent should understand that they have to sacrifice some of their activities for the welfare of the child. After all, it is a gift from the God, and we have a huge responsibility on our shoulder. So because it is the human life's future which is at stake. So disciplining yourself for say 15-20 years give you the best rewards in the long run. So I think the parent should also cut down the screen time. They should spend time with the child. And the more they spend time with the child, I can understand at times there are no help in the house, and the mother is, alone, and they give screen. But there can be different options. You can give a painting brush and a canvas to the child. Child can paint on that. And child can listen to music, child can listen to poems. There are so many other options, creative options. So parenting is all about, creation. So a single message cannot be given. It is a tailor-made type of a, strategy which the mother will frame out for the child and for her own household. So what I think is that mother should be more creative, and they should spend time with the child, and screen should be avoided. It is not only the screen time which matters, Karishma, it is also what the child is seeing. So the parent should put the privacy locks also on the adult content, aggressive content, violent content, and they should also be monitoring what the child is viewing. Because, the children, they can't differentiate between virtual and real violence.
Yeah.
So it is very important that not only the quantity of screen should be decreased, but the quality of what the child is viewing should also be enhanced.
Correct. Again, when it comes to screen time, another emotion is tantrums, where the child is just like, I want to watch TV, I want to watch Pep. And I've seen it. I have 2 sisters and 4 nephews. So मैंने देखा है कि if they want the screen, they want the screen. How do parents deal with these type of tantrums or temper tantrums, not only about the screen, but about anything that the child may ask?
Tantrums are quite common, especially in preschool age. They are very common. The child will bang the head on the wall, child will lie down, will scream, and the child can beat the mother also. So these tantrums are very common. But we must understand, these are not deliberate efforts by the child. These are not done deliberately. So what happens is the child's communication is not developed to that extent that child can communicate the frustration to the mother. So because the child cannot communicate the frustration to the mother, what happens is the child throws a tantrum. So whenever a child throws a tantrum, we must keep in mind 2-3 things. Prevention is better than cure. So first of all, the mother should try to prevent a tantrum. So it is often seen the child throws a tantrum when the child is irritable, child is stressed out, child is hungry, sleepy. So at that time, mother should be very, very considerate so that we can prevent tantrums. I think 50-60% of the tantrums can be prevented. Next is, once a child throws a tantrum, at that time, most of the mothers, they also throw the tantrum. So it is very important that they should not give a strong emotional reaction when the child is throwing a tantrum. So it is very important. So mother should remain cool and calm, and mother should make it sure the child is safe, and should not give too much of attention onto the tantrum, because the tantrums will increase over a period of time. So mother should be compassionate. Once the child cools down, the tantrum is over. Later on, the mother can explain to the child, mother can communicate with the child so that these tantrums, they decrease over a period of time. So tantrums are very normal, And if we deal with them patiently, coolly, calmly, then over a period of time, they go away.
The direct outcome of tantrum sometimes is punishment. And the road of punishment has evolved, I would like to believe, at least by and large. Because, 20, 30, 40 years ago, raising a hand was not very uncommon, here and there, or in whichever context. And it's obviously worse for children who had to deal with that far more. But today there's more awareness that raising a hand is not a solution. But there are very different kind of debates online where some parents think that, to school the kid once in a while, if it's a very, very large problem, say they threw something sharp or they hit somebody else or pulled somebody's hair, one can use that kind of punishment. But what are your thoughts? What is punishment even okay? Should parents be doing it? If yes, how? If no, how does a child understand that I don't have to hit somebody?
I have a very strong view on punishment. No punishment at all to the child. We can discipline the child, but no corporal punishment, no physical punishment to the child. It is extremely counterproductive. I've raised 2 kids and I have never even slapped any of my child. Although Ritesh told me that you have given a slap when I was in class 7th. That is only one incident I remember. But Krishma, the best part of the slap is the person who is giving, he forgets. And the person who receives, he always remembers. So I trust his memory. But I am absolutely against giving any kind of corporal punishment to the child or physical punishment. Because, there are 2 ways to look at it. Once you give a punishment, the child undergoes a fear factor. So if it has been seen and studies have been conducted, the children who have been constantly being beaten up or brushed up, so these type of children, once they grow up, they are fearful. Their view of the world is that it is an insecure, aggressive place. And their esteem goes down, they have less confidence. So this is one set of the humans, those who evolve with punishment. The other set of the humans, they get rebellious and they get stubborn. So both kind of outcomes are not desirable at all. And moreover, it doesn't serve any purpose. Because if we are punishing the child, the little child doesn't understand that why I've been punished, because the logical thinking doesn't develop till the age of 6 to 7 years. So the child is always confused. So punishment in no way is productive. And it has been seen the children who are punished or beaten in the childhood, they also beat their children or their wives once they grow up. So a kind of aggressive atmosphere, the family dynamics, it changes. So a kind of aggressive atmosphere prevails in the house, which is not at all good, neither for parenting nor for interpersonal relation between husband and wife. So punishment is so the age-old saying that spare the rod and spoil the child is absolutely wrong.
So how does one go to correct a child in extreme situations?
So I will put it this way, that even if you want to discipline the child, I will not use the word punish the child, but if you want to discipline the child, the best way to discipline or the best way to punish for that matter is to withdraw something which the child holds very dear. Like between 6 to 6:30, a child is allowed to see a Cartoon Network. So you be firm that today you will not be seeing the Cartoon Network. So there is nothing to be very aggressive. There is no need to yell at the child. You just say that I'm going to withdraw your evening Cartoon Network time. Or the child is fond of something very, he has some preferences, like he likes a candy or a chocolate, which is given once in a week. You withdraw that. So that is the best way to punish. And for disciplining the child, you don't need punishment, you need communication. Listen to the child and communicate with the child. With communication, listening, and with softer skills, the child will understand also, and there will not be any requirement to punish the child also.
How does it move towards adding context or making the child understand about something? Because it can be complicated to teach a child something. Like you said, logic only comes at the age of 6, 7, 8, around that time frame. So very young child, right? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. How do you go about teaching them about important things? For example, not being violent, or even bad touch, good touch. What is a appropriate time then to introduce these concepts? Even though a child should know good touch, bad touch, much before logical reasoning kicks in, right? To protect himself or to go and tell the parent that this is what happened. So how do you reason with a child of that age group?
So as far as good touch, bad touch is concerned, in 2024, a study was conducted by UNICEF. You will be shocked to know, Karishma, that 1 billion children all over the world, this is UNICEF study, they are psychologically, emotionally, or sexually abused when they are children. So 1 billion children. It is a huge number. 1 billion children all over the world. This is a UNICEF study which was conducted in 2024. So psychological, emotional, and sexual abuse is, I will say, it is quite common. And the worst part is the children, they don't come up with this. So the parent should be very sensitive about the cues.
Come up with this as in they don't share?
They don't share.
Okay.
They don't share with the parents. They are more scared to share with the parents. So this is the worst part of it. That is why the abuse process continues. So it is very important for the mother to find the cues that my child might be sexually abused outside. So there are certain cues to which the mother should be highly sensitive. Her antenna should be well developed to sense that my child is sexually abused outside. So there are certain cues I will like to tell you. Number one, any child who tries to avoid or who is panicky about going with a particular person in a particular situation at a particular place, be very careful. Secondly, if child is complaining of suddenly child has started bedwetting, thumb sucking has increased, child is getting isolated, child behavior is changing, child is getting more irritable. So one of the reasons could be that maybe child is sexually abused somewhere, or maybe psychologically or emotionally abused. So another problem is, anytime if you find there is any redness or any kind of little injury in any of the private parts, be extremely careful. Immediately consult your pediatrician and be careful. It might be that child is being sexually abused. Sexual abuse is there to the tune of almost 40%, and it is not limited only to the girls. It happens with the boys also. Mm-hmm. So we must understand, and these are some of the signs which the child will give. And if you are hugging the child and child is not feeling comfortable, child is getting irritable
by any touch,
even with the hug of a parent, even then you should be little suspicious that why the child is. So we need to have a strong sense of, we need to have a strong sense of suspicion to catch hold of that maybe our child is getting sexually abused. So this is a very important topic, and every parent should be aware of it.
Have you seen it to one of your patients any of your patients who have come to you?
I have come across about 3 decades back. I remember a couple, they both were very senior government officers. They came to me at night. They said that, Dr. Saab, we want to get our child examined. At 10 o'clock, they came to my clinic. This was, I think, about 2.5 to 3 decades back at the start of my practice. So they came and I examined the child. I said, what happened? So those parents were so aware. At that time, there were no CCTV cameras, nothing. But somehow they arranged for a small camera and they had put in the bedroom of the child. And because they both were working, and when they saw the camera, the servant was fiddling with the private parts of the baby. And child was only 2.5 years old. And I appreciated those parents that you are so aware. So that kind of vigilance and that kind of awareness needs to be there with every parent. You need to keep the children secure. You should keep an eye on everybody, whosoever is coming in contact with the child. So it is extremely important. As far as good touch and bad touch is concerned, the right age to start teaching them about good touch and bad touch is between the age of 3 to 4 years. And it should be taught in a very playful manner, non-threatening manner, in a very cool and calm manner. We should teach the child using the language like private parts. So at this stage, we can make them aware of two things. What are the private parts? So private parts are anything which is covered in your swimsuit is private parts. And this includes your cheeks and lips also. So number one, they should have a concept of the private parts. Second, they should have the concept that, look, I am the boss of my private parts and no one can fiddle with my private parts. Then at this stage also, we can teach them what is a good touch and what is a bad touch. So good touch is like shaking hands with your friends. The mother is hugging or the parents are hugging the child. This is a good touch where the child feels secure. On the other hand, the bad touch is that some stranger is trying to fiddle or to handle your private parts where you are feeling scared, you're not comfortable. So that is a bad touch. So as the child grows at the age of 5 to 7, you can deepen your discussion and you can further tell them about good touch and bad touch, and you can further deepen the conversation because the understanding of the child is also increasing. So it is an extremely important part of parenting. We are not taught about the subject of parenting. So it needs to be. And there are certain strong messages which should go in public. So there are certain very strong messages which we should give. Like, no salt till the age of 1 year and no sugar till the age of 2 years. It is extremely important. Because if the child develops a taste of sugar at a young age of, say, 1 year or 1.5 years, child will not eat nuts, vegetable, fruits. So it is very important. So there are certain messages which we should tell to the public and to the mothers and the fathers that they should be aware of. No walker should be given. You will be surprised to know that between 1990 to 2023, a study has been conducted in US where 230,000 accidents have occurred only because of walker. Yes, in say 33 years, if you see 230,000 accidents, they have occurred because of walker. So walkers are not recommended. And the general myth is that if we don't give walker, the child will not walk, which is a wrong myth. And there are so many myths which are prevalent in our society, which needs to be broken as far as the science of pediatrics and parenting is concerned.
Okay. You also said that there's a lot of unawareness about parenting by and large. And it takes time for parents also to understand that this is so important. So if somebody is starting their parenting journey or they're pregnant or just delivered, how do they hone this skill set to become a better parent?
Yeah, we are good doctors, CAs, engineers, and computer professionals, but one day we get an alien in our hand. We get a child and we don't know what to do with it. So teaching of parenting should start the moment mother becomes pregnant. So that, parenting starts in the neonatal period only. The baby is born. At that time only the parenting should start. In what way? I will tell you. The way you touch the baby, the way you address to the needs of the baby, and when the baby is crying and then you are addressing the needs of the baby, maybe the baby is feeling cold or baby is hungry, and immediate addressing to the problem of the baby, the baby feels confident, the baby feels secure. So from that age only, the parenting should start. The mother should do a lot of concepts are there, kangaroo parenting and so many things. But, the mothers, once they massage the baby passionately, that also gives a sensual kind of an emotional connect between baby and the mother. So all these things are very important. So parenting starts in the neonatal age group and it doesn't end. Even when your child is 40-year-old, you are even then parenting this thing. So parenting is a very important subject which should be started the moment the mother gets pregnant. They should get this skill set of parenting.
So we discussed aggressive emotional reaction, ठीक है, कि child को punish करना है, yelling, screaming. Then there's a other extreme, जो है silent treatment. मैं बात नहीं करूँगी. How is that for a form of discipline?
Karishma, silent treatment is as dangerous as corporal punishment because children are highly sensitive to the emotions of the parents. For a child, parent is like a god. You imagine if you feel that your God is not happy with you, you will be perplexed. You will be anxious. You will be fearful for that matter. So silent treatment also should not be given to the child. And children are highly sensitive. They understand that my mother is not happy with me. So that also has a bad effect on the brain of the child. There is a very good property of a brain, what we call as neuroplasticity. So if you give a positive parenting to the child, the brain develops different kind of connections and different kind of pathways. So brain is neuroplastic and this can be seen on MRI also. Functional MRI, you can see the structural changes in the brain once the behavior of the parents is changed to the positive parenting. So brain is a very complex structure. So you imagine there are 86 billion neurons and they are interconnected with each other and there are about 100 trillion connections. So once we do a positive parenting to the child, we spend time with the child, we communicate with the child. So these connections get more strong, new connections are formed, new pathways are formed, and the brain develops very nicely. So it is extremely important for us to understand that whatever behavior we are doing, that is going to impact the child, either in the positive way or in the negative way. So now coming to the silent treatment. So if we are giving silent treatment to the child, these type of children, and if parents are giving silent treatment on the regular basis, these type of children, when they grow up, they are not, they are probably more anxious, they are more obsessives, and they feel insecure also. And at times they are more fearful and probably not happy. So it is very important that at this tender stage of life, we should be full of love and compassion, and love should be unconditional. Should be irrespective of what you are achieving or what are your failures or what are your successes. No, it should be an unconditional love which should flow from parents to the child. Fine, we have to make a boundary around the child and there are certain red behaviors which cannot be tolerated. That is agreed. But beyond that, most of the things should be left.
Right. What about stress? A lot of parents believe that there should be no stress in a child's life and they should be protected. What is the balance between real world and being protected? And how should parents look at it?
Look, Karishma, we should protect our child. That is very important. If any injustice is being done to the child, we should be advocate of our child and we should protect the child. Supposingly someone is bullying our child or some teacher is grossly misbehaving with our child, obviously we should become a polite advocate to our child and we should protect the right of our child. That is one aspect which is agreed upon. But at the same time, with every adversity, the parent should not come forward. There should be kind of a collaborative problem solving. With the child, you should support the child and child should solve the problem on his own. So child should be exposed to graded kind of adversities as appropriate with the age of the child. So graded kind of adversities child should be exposed so that the child learns the skill of problem solving, the skill of decision making. So these children, when they develop into adults, they are confident. They take their own decisions. They know how to solve the problem.
So when you said, some kind of adversaries, the parents should not jump in. What are examples of these kind of problems?
Small sibling rivalries, small kind of tiffs between the children, small kind of stress on the child in the sense that the child is not doing reasonably well in academics. So these are very small problems which the child faces on day-to-day basis. So here we should give support. We should provide with the tools for achieving a result. But we should not jump over it that we are doing homework on our own. So parents, I've seen the parents, those who are doing the homework for the child, they are overprotective. So overprotection is in fact counterproductive. So the children who have been overprotected from the beginning, to a certain extent, we can overprotect the child. But once the child grows to an adult being, it will be difficult for us also to overprotect. So it is very important that child should learn the skill of protecting himself only.
That's not something somebody should be doing for you actively or all the time, because then that's what you get used to. You become dependent in a way. You mentioned academics and pressure of academics, and this is such a widely discussed topic, not only for children, but throughout your life, right? That you want to achieve, you want to excel, and, all kinds of permutation combinations. How much emphasis should parents be placing on academics from a young age?
Look, academics is definitely an important aspect of any child. There is no doubt about it. But putting too much emphasis only on academics is not correct. Because, there are different other skills which we should develop in the child. Non-cognitive skills like how to manage your time, financial skills, resilience, decision-making skills, problem-solving skills. So there are many other skills which the child should be empowered with, rather than only following the academics. Now I tell you, Karishma, we had a batch of 180 in our medical school in Maulana Azad Medical College. And now when I review the past, say 3 decades, so the people who were doing extremely well in academics, probably many of them are not successful and also not that happy also. Because, happiness and success, it depends on a lot of other factors. How do you regulate your emotions? What is your NLP skill? How much flexible you are? How much optimistic you are? And so it is not only the academics which is going to give you in the long run all the results. So, and how much entrepreneur skill you have. So a lot of entrepreneurs, they were school failures. They were college failures.
Yeah.
So I think putting too much stress on academics, and especially in the coming times with AI coming in, so after a decade, academics will lose further its importance. Because, the factual things you need not cram up. They will be available.
Exactly.
So what you will be needing after a decade or 2 decades will be creative, independent thinking, entrepreneur spirit, problem solving skills. You will be needing more of them rather than the cramming capacity of, this thing. So I give you my example. The parent should be very supportive. So humbly, I will agree that in class 10th, I got only 3 marks out of 100 in maths. So my father was wonderful parent. So he was very cool and calm, and he told me, you leave maths and pursue biology. So I left maths at that stage. I pursued biology and became a doctor. So, we should appreciate the strength of the child. Similarly, my son, we made him a doctor and he never wanted to be a medical practitioner. So we were very supportive. So, we should be like gardeners, not like carpenters. So it is a very good concept a psychologist has given that, the parent should be just like gardeners. They should not be like carpenters. So what happens is the gardener parent, what the gardener parent do is that they provide support, enthusiasm, praise, and all the tools for the success and leave the child. So the child develops in his own unique way. So, you should be a gardener. Now, what a carpenter parent does is he fixes the frame in a very rigid way. That, look, you have to become a doctor, you have to follow this path, I will decide for you what you have to do, whatever are your strengths, they don't matter to me. So that is a carpenter type of a parenting. So we should be more like a gardener parent rather than like a carpenter.
Yeah.
So this is what is called a, collaborative type of a democratic type of a parenting.
Uncle, another very popular question जो आता ही है is that my child is not eating. So what do you say to those parents जिनको बहुत ही परेशानी रहती है कि मेरा बच्चा खा नहीं रहा है?
ये सबसे कॉमन क्वेश्चन है जो हम लोग क्लिनिक्स में फेस करते हैं. ऑलमोस्ट एवरी थर्ड और फोर्थ मदर आस्क के डॉक्टर साहब, ये खाता नहीं है, ये खाता नहीं है, इसका एपिटाइट नहीं है. सो वी हैव टू केयरफुली इवेल्युएट दिस प्रॉब्लम. And over last 3 decades, what I have found is, in majority of cases, it is a misimpression of the mother that my child is not eating well. In fact, the child is eating well, but there are certain factors which the mother ignores. So number one is that mother doesn't put the multiplication factor. Supposingly a child is 2 years old, weighing 12 kgs. If that child eats half a banana, it means the mother has eaten almost 3 bananas. It is weight-wise if we compare 2.5 or 3 bananas. So the mother should also put emphasis on the multiplication factor. If this child drinks a 200 gram of milk, it means the mother has taken almost 800 grams of milk. So we should imagine that after taking 800 grams of milk, we might not feel, our appetite might go down over next 6 to 8 hours. So the first factor is this. Second is that if your child's weight is normal for age, height is normal for age, and child is reasonably taking the balanced diet, we need not bother about the weight. Third point is that weight is dependent upon heredity also. If the mother and father were lean and thin at that age, the child is likely to be lean and thin. So that is also an important factor. Moreover, we should respect the appetite of the child. We should not pressurize the child to eat, because, appetite is a very elusive phenomena. The more we pressurize, the lesser it becomes. So it is very important to respect the appetite of the child. Above all, if the child is constantly not eating well and the child is losing weight, then you can consult your pediatrician. Maybe there is some medical problem with the child. But in most of the cases, children are healthy if their weight and height is normal for the age. At times, the children are very choosy and picky eaters also.
Yeah.
That is also a very common question by the mothers. So again, the thing is that we should not only respect the appetite of the child, but we should also respect the preferences of the child. The child says, saag nahi khaunga, matar paneer khaunga. Matar paneer kha le. The child says कि मैं इस तरह की सैंडविच नहीं लूंगा, उस तरह की सैंडविच लूंगा, तो वो ले ले, है ना? So long as the child is taking nourishing diet, we should give respect to the preferences of the child. This is number one. Number two, food should be made fun. It should be just like a game. So mother can cut the sandwiches in different sizes, or mother can use colorful plates, and mother can do a lot of creative things. If the child is not eating green vegetables, methi ka parantha de do. If the child is not taking, say, paneer ka parantha de do. So creativity also has to come over it. Moreover, there should be a specified meal time where there is no screen, the family is sitting together and the family is eating together. That is extremely important. One very important factor, Karishma, is that at times we give high caloric foods like chocolates, toffees, which provides the calorie to the child but not the nourishment to the child. So we should also be cognizant of the fact that we should not be giving these kind of high caloric junk foods to the child, because they also suppress the appetite in the long run. So I think if the mother takes care of all these factors, so this problem can be solved. But still, if the mother feels the appetite is low, she can make a list of whatever food the child is taking for 72 hours and show it to the pediatrician. So the pediatrician can calculate the calories and the protein intake and can tell whether the child's appetite is normal or not. So I think with these exercises, this problem can be very well and nicely tackled.
Another question that parents typically have, or mothers also for that matter, is, does my child have ADHD? Even autism is a question that parents typically question, right? कि ये ऐसे कर रहा है, शायद ये हो सकता है. So how do you kind of go about telling parents what is a determining factor कि ये है कि नहीं है?
Very nice question. And I will say that it is the modern phobia in the mind of mothers. The moment child turns 2 years, 3 years, and the child is little hyperactive, the mothers, they feel that maybe the child is developing ADHD, that is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Or if the child is little bit drawn, the mother feels that maybe my child is getting autistic. So this is very common phobia with mothers. I must tell you, as far as ADHD is concerned, generally any child who is hyperactive, it doesn't mean the child is developing ADHD. So of course, we should be vigilant about the symptoms of ADHD, but ADHD diagnosis should not be made by the mother. It should be made by a pediatrician. So in ADHD, what happens is the child is always on the move. The child has a lot of energy. The child is very communicative, will ask a lot of questions. In an inattention type of ADHD, the child will do careless mistakes. Child is distractible. If you find these kind of symptoms, then you should report to your pediatrician who can evaluate. Secondly, whenever ADHD or autism is diagnosed, these are treatable conditions. They can be very well controlled. Even medicines are available for ADHD which are effective. So it is not the end of the world if a child is diagnosed with ADHD or autism. Lot of things can be done by behavior therapist, occupational therapist, pediatrician, speech therapist. So a lot of things can be done. The crux is that we should diagnose these children at the earliest, because early intervention is going to affect the outcome of the child.
How soon can doctors know whether the child has ADHD or autism?
Yeah. Autism, every child should be screened for autism at the age of between 18 to 24 months.
Okay.
So that is the earliest time we can see the features of autism. The features are child will not have eye contact, child will have communication problems, child can initiate the conversation, but it is difficult for child to continue with the conversation. Child cannot cannot understand the gestures given by the mother. And generally there is delayed speech also in autistic children. So these are some of the symptoms. And by the age of 18 to 24 months, whenever you are going for a routine vaccination to the pediatrician, the child should be screened for the autism. ADHD diagnosis we don't make before the age of 4 years. Because between 1 to 3 years of age, generally the children are very hyperactive, which over a period of time, these symptoms, they melt down. So this diagnosis is made only after the age of 4 years. But the awareness about both these conditions is very important. One very important thing I will like to point out, generally, if the child has ADHD, parents have guilt that it is probably because of us, we have not done good parenting, or probably we have been fighting together, or blah, blah, blah. That is why the child has got ADHD. This is not correct. So the parental attitudes have nothing much to do with ADHD. So that is also very important. They should not feel guilty about it.
There are also a lot of comparison drawn. Okay. Not only just with kids in the classroom, but even within siblings. You see, he's doing so well in physics or math or wherever, right? That there's one who's a responsible child and one who's a naughty child. You know, you get these little names. How healthy or unhealthy is that between siblings?
Unhealthy comparison between two children should not be done. It is definitely counterproductive. It undermines the confidence of the child, not only in present, but also in future. So unhealthy comparison should not be done. So to understand that, we must understand that there are 8 kind of intelligences. So some of the children, they have spatial intelligence. So they have clear concept of space. So they should be, say, pilots, architects. Then some of the children have linguistic intelligence. So they have a predominantly linguistic intelligence. So they should be novelists, journalists. Some of the children have a logistic intelligence. So they should be lawyers. So similarly, there are 8 kind of intelligence: musical intelligence, then there is interpersonal relation intelligence, intrapersonal relation. So any child who has intrapersonal relation intelligence, he should be a therapist or a counselor. So every child is different. So we can't compare 2 children together. Maybe one child is very good in sports and the other child is good in academics. Maybe one child is very good in academics, the other child has very good emotional intelligence. So it is in fact unfair also to compare 2 children.
Another interesting family dynamic, especially in Indian households, is that we tend to live with our grandparents. You are a grandparent to a cute baby Avya. And grandparents typically have that more lenient attitude towards children, right? Ki if parents are saying, ye mat khao, ye nahi milega, wo nahi milega, grandparents will say, no, take it. Does this confuse the child? Is it healthy? Because it's like that good cop, bad cop. How do grandparents' equation fit into all this?
Yeah. Once the grandparents are also staying with the parents, or I will put it this way, once the parents are staying with the grandparents and the child is also there, so there are 3 generations. So there is a generation gap between the child and the parent and the grandparent. So very important thing is that grandparents and parents should sit together, communicate with each other on the parenting styles, and should be one. Again, the child, whatever behavior or misbehavior child is doing, the response from grandparents and parents should be same. So that the child at that tender age is not confused which behavior is desirable, which behavior is not desirable. Second very important factor is that generally grandparents are more permissive. So permissive parenting means that they will give chocolates, they will give toffees, and they will spoil the child as per with the parents, if you see from the parents' point of view. So again, if there is any difference in opinion between the parents and grandparents, that should not be brought in front of the child, because the child will also divide and rule. So they are also very clever. So we have to be very careful that we should not give any opportunity to the child where the child gets confused that which behavior is normal, which is not normal. Moreover, in joint family, there should be consistency. Supposingly, a child breaks a glass. One day we are laughing at the child, and the other day on the same incidents, we are just reprimanding the child. So the behavior has to be consistent among all the adult members of the family. Parents should also tell grandparents what are the latest trends in parenting, how the parenting is changing with the changing cultural dynamics over a period of time. So they should also discuss with the grandparents, and they should also give the evidence-based studies that now the child psychologist says this is good for the child. And there is a difference between old and new parenting. So all these differences should be discussed openly between the grandparents and parents. Of course, parents respectfully should submit to the grandparents that this is the new dynamics which is evolving. You know, parenting is a subject which is ever changing and ever evolving. And it will keep on evolving till the human beings are there, because the environment is also evolving. So in older times, there was no screen, there was no junk food available. So the things are evolving over a period of time. So it is better to have a dialogue between parents and grandparents, and they should give a consistent behavior to the child. Since I have throughout my life stayed in a joint family with my parents, with my grandparents, and now with my parents, me and my children and their children. So it is very important in family dynamics that in joint family, you get a good support system. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that there should not be any kind of divide and rule.
कई सारे और measurements होते हैं like weight, height, जो parents काफी closely monitor करते हैं कि मेरा बेटा 2 साल तक हो गया और अभी भी यही height है. Is there something that is a typical ये जो एज, ये जो वेट रहनी चाहिए, हाइट रहनी चाहिए, या इट्स ओके, इट्स रिलेटिव?
So weight and height of a child depends upon heredity, the nutritional status, the physical activity status, and many factors. But this is a very common questions. Generally, the parents, they ask from me, is my child growing well? Weight and height is normal for age? And the developmental milestones are normal or not? So I will give it in a very simple terms. At birth, approximately the Indian weight is 2.8 kgs, or let us put it 3 kgs weight at birth. At 1 year, it is almost 10 kgs. At 6 years, 20, and at 10 years, 30 kgs. So it is a simple formula. It is in a layman term, I am telling you. Although we cannot stick to it because weight depends on lot many other factors. So plus minus 2 kgs can be in the normal range. So any child at birth who is 3 kgs, at 1 year, he is about between 9 to 10 kgs, at 6 years, 20 kgs, and 10 years, 30 kgs, simple formula. And you can add 2 kgs every year. So that way, there is another formula. If the child is less than 6 years, age into 2 plus 8. It is a very simple formula by which you can calculate the average weight of your child, but plus minus 1 to 2 kgs is always in the normal range. Similarly for height, at birth it is 50, doubles at 4 years it is 100, and at the age of 10 years it is 137. So it is simple thing. So at birth the height is 50, 1 year 75, 4 years 100, and 10 years 137. Again, the formula is age into 6 plus 77 centimeters. So the parents can, instead of getting panicky, running to the pediatricians, can apply this formula and see the child is growing well or not. Again, height depends upon genetic factors, nutritional factors, and lot many other factors. So plus minus of say 3-4 centimeters is okay. If your child is after the age of 2 years is gaining almost 4 centimeter per year, if the child is gaining less than 4 centimeter per year, then you should be worried and you should talk to your pediatrician. Otherwise also, weight and height charts are available, which are monitored by good pediatricians on every visit, so that the child is growing well or not can be easily charted down. So this is regarding the growth of the child. Now for the development also, the normal development is that head holding, partial head holding should come by the age of 4 months. Sitting without support should come by the age of 7 to 8 months. Walking by the age of almost 13 months. Single word the child will start speaking by the age of say 10 months to 12 months. And the child will unite 2 words together by the age of 18 months. So where the parent should get worried, here comes the thing. If your child has no neck holding by the age of 4 months, if the child has not started sitting by the age of 9 months, if the child has not started walking by the age of 18 months, and if the child is not speaking even a single word by the age of 18 months, you should be bothered. And you should talk to your pediatrician. So this is a clear-cut formula for growth and development of a child. So by this formula, you can make out whether your child is growing well or not. And if there is any confusion, you should talk to your pediatrician.
Wow, it's so clear. Like there is no discrepancy. ये है तो है. So the child is so active, so playful कि काफी सारी चीजें हो जाती है. But parents have a very strong reaction on everything. ये ग्लास टूटा रिएक्शन हुआ, ये क्लिप नहीं पहनी रिएक्शन हुई. तो what is the right kind of reaction that you deserve to give, and where should you withhold and say जो करना है कर लो?
Parents को ना, they should choose their battles very carefully. बहुत सारी चीजें होती हैं, छोटी छोटी प्रेफरेंसेस होती हैं, छोटे छोटे इमोशनल रिएक्शंस होते हैं बच्चे के, छोटी छोटी एक्टिविटीज होती हैं. जरूरी नहीं है हम सबके ऊपर स्ट्रॉन्ग रिएक्शन दें. बहुत सारी चीजें हैं, वी शुड जस्ट लीव देम. उनको छोड़ देना चाहिए, इग्नोर कर देना चाहिए. जैसे चलते चलते बच्चा फिसल गया, शीशा टूट गया, चाइल्ड इज सेफ, एवरीथिंग इज फाइन, देयर इज नो नीड टू ओवर रिएक्ट ऑन दिस. ये हमसे भी टूट सकता है, देयर इज नथिंग रॉन्ग, इट इज नॉट इंटेंशनल. कभी बच्चा कहता है, मेल चाइल्ड कहता है कि मैं निक्कर नहीं पहनूंगा, पैंट पहनूंगा, पैंट पहन ले. फीमेल चाइल्ड कहती है बाल खुले रखूंगी, क्लिप नहीं लगाऊंगी. कोई बात नहीं, आज तो खुले रख ले. मैं दाल नहीं खाऊंगा, मैं सब्जी खाऊंगा, कोई बात नहीं, तो वो ले ले। सो छोटी छोटी चीजों को हमें छोड़ देना चाहिए। सो व्हाट विल हैपन, टू थिंग्स विल हैपन। जो बड़ी चीजें हैं वहां पे आप बाउंड्री बना सकते हो और बच्चा उनको अच्छे से फॉलो भी करेगा। नहीं तो बच्चा कंफ्यूज रहेगा, हर चीज में अगर टोकेंगे तो कंफ्यूज रहेगा। दूसरा इसका फैक्टर ये होता है कि मदर भी स्ट्रेस से अलग हो जाती है। मदर भी अननेसेसरी स्ट्रेस नहीं करती है। शी नोज के बहुत सारी चीजें मुझे इग्नोर करनी है फॉर द बेटरमेंट ऑफ द चाइल्ड। By not ignoring small things, we are killing the creativity of the child. We are killing the independence of the child. We are killing the decision making capacity of the child. तो अगर हर चीज में हम करेंगे तो बच्चा घबरा जाएगा, उसको समझ ही नहीं आएगा क्या ठीक है क्या नहीं है. So it is extremely important that we should ignore certain things which are not very relevant. आपस में बच्चे खेलते खेलते छोटी मोटी उनकी आपस में बात हो जाती है, वाद विवाद हो जाता है, आप दूर से देखते रहिए. So long as they are not getting aggressive, sibling छोटी छोटी rivalries हो जाती है, इग्नोर कर दीजिए. So these are very important thing. फसी ईटर्स है, तूने खाना खाना है कि नहीं, नहीं खाना, कोई बात नहीं, छोड़ दो. तूने क्या खाना है, ये खाना है, वो खाना है, नहीं मैंने वो खाना है, गिव हिम दैट. सो बहुत सारी चीजें आपको छोड़नी पड़ेंगी, लेकिन here we must understand what are the red flag situations which we have not to ignore. So these red flag situations are where the child is getting grossly indisciplined. गालियां दे रहा है, तेज बोल रहा है, abusive language use कर रहा है. No, this is not done. There you should put your foot down. Or the child is doing harmful behavior for the other children. He is pushing, he is beating, he is biting the peer group or siblings. No, this is not done. There you should put your foot down. Or the child is doing harmful behavior for himself. Child is running amok on the road, or the child is playing around the fire, or the child is doing some dangerous activities, or the child is taking tablet of an adult and puts that in the mouth, or the child is putting fingers in the socket. So these are some things where you should put your foot down. Okay, look, this is not done. So it is extremely important for the parents to understand which battles to fight and which battles to ignore. And over a period of time, they will realize that there are a lot many battles which they need not fight. They need not get stressed about it. So in the long run, now these children, those who develop, there has been a study in Harvard Human Flourishing Study. So what happens in this study was they studied a lot of children. So in the control group, what they did, they imparted positive parenting in these children. And over a period of time, they found that these children, those who were instilled with positive parenting, 21% they were more wealthy. 21% they had more emotional control, self-regulation, more resilience and more endurance as compared to the other children. So it is very important that most of the places we should have a positive parenting and we should be interfering as less as possible.
और आपने एक बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज मुझे ऑफलाइन कही, the 3-4 things that you told your children and said कि ये नहीं करना, बाकी जो करना है कर लो. If you could share that with those watching.
You know, very interesting thing, Karishma, I will like to share with you. I've shared with many of my patients, many of my junior doctors and colleagues and this thing. When I was in class 4th, I distinctly remember my father told me that whatever you are doing, always remember the mother is sitting on one shoulder and father is sitting on the other shoulder, and we will see you. Whether we are dead or alive, we will see you. Now, you know, this thing was told to me about 4 or 5 decades back. And it had such a big impact on my mind that whenever I did anything, I always remembered that mother and father, they are seeing me. So we should impart these type of things in the children so that they also understand in a better way. Secondly, my father also told me, don't do anything in darkness which you have difficulty in accepting during the daytime. So when darkness will get converted into light, you never know and you will feel embarrassed. So these are some of the things which the parents, they tell you. And I think the age-old parenting had a lot of positive points. So this was my experience with my father. Then to my children, I've always been extremely positive in my parenting. So I hardly used to interfere with them. But the only thing I used to interfere was don't do any abusive behavior. Don't enter into unnecessary fights or aggressive behavior. You should be more agreeable than argumentative. So, you know, there was a kind of a boundary which I formed around the children, but that boundary was very small. So it was not like that all the behaviors were included in that boundary. So the smaller the boundary, the less constricted the child will feel. Human beings, they don't want to be controlled. And we are nobody to control them. We are there to nurture them and to guide them in the right direction. So I think parenting is not about only pediatrics and the science of parenting. It has to do something with, you know, the philosophy and the common sense also.
Yeah, because so often we just lose sight of that कि बहुत ही fundamental ethical level पे क्या सही है क्या गलत है. You also speak about the tiger ninja concept. What is a tiger ninja concept?
So when my son, he was in class 4th or 5th, he was a thin and lean boy, just average in studies. And he was little ill-confident also. He used to stammer a lot. So I started calling him Tiger. So, you know, after some time, after few months, I saw a change in him. So he became little more robust. He became more confident, and his stammering was also decreasing. And similarly with my daughter, when she was of the same age, I started calling her Ninja. So ninjas are the fighters. So, you know, with this also, her self-concept also increased. So with these kind of words, so we should, in both letter and spirit, we should raise the confidence of the child. So if we use positive vocabulary with the child, so child slowly imbibes. They slowly they feel that yes, we are fighters, we are ninjas. So they are not scared of failures. So they are not scared of adversity. And so I think that in the long run produces an adult who is cooperative, collaborative, confident, probably happy also, and successful also, because confidence is very important. Second thing is that confidence is not going to come without competence. So we should also work on the competence of the child. Yeah. We should work on the skills of the child. Supposing a child is a good singer, so make the child a singer or a musician, and the child should go and perform on the stage. So that will create a kind of confidence. So confidence should also be backed by the competence. So for academics also, solve maths question with the child. Solve the child, work on the difficult concepts with the child. So once these concepts are cleared and once the results are shown in the form of academic numbers and this thing, child gets confident. So I think confidence without competence will not work. So we should, on one side, we should give the confidence to the child, and on the other side, we should also work on the skill sets so that the competence also increases.
Uncle, what about parents who don't understand complicated mathematics and cannot teach the child?
Yeah. You know, even a mother who is not well educated, she can also be a very good parent. Maybe she doesn't understand the concepts of maths, but she can give the MCQs to the child. Child will do the MCQs. She can sit with the child at night once the child is studying. She can check the paper. And, you know, a lot of things even the mother can do. And the mother can also find a good tutor if she is not able to make the child study on her own, then she can find a good tutor. So parents can do a lot of things, and they need to be very creative. This is the problem in front of me for my child and what to do. And there should not be a cortical rush in the parents. What happens is the moment there is a small problem with the child, the cortical rush in the parent starts, the cortisol level, which is an emergency hormone, it increases. Fight, flight or fright. So immediately they come into the picture to rescue the child. So the cortisol level should also not rise on every small thing. So parents need to be very cool, calm, patient, confident. And once they see their parents to be cool, calm, patient and confident, the same thing. Emotions are more infectious even than the infectious diseases. Supposingly, I have typhoid, we are staying together, you may or may not get typhoid. But if I'm a negative person and I'm staying with you, you will get my negativity. So emotions are also very infectious. So if we want to make our child non-anxious, earlier I told you, we need to have non-anxious parents.
Absolutely. Let's talk about financial literacy, because finances are so important, right? Like the number one value that me and my sisters had while growing up was value money. You have to value money. You cannot take it for granted. You have to also earn your own. So as daughters, we've always told that you make something of yourself, you study hard, get a job, do whatever, but you have to make something of your own. And I think that's something that really has penetrated deep into the subconscious, that, you have to make something of your own. How important and what is the right time for parents to introduce the monetary aspect of the real world to the child?
I must appreciate and salute your parents, Karishma. The way you have groomed yourself and the way you have carried yourself forward in a confident way. And you are very right that your parents taught you some financial literacy at that stage, and you value the money for it. So it is very important. Now, the basic problem with our Indian families is that we are scared about talking about money to our children. Generally, we don't talk about money in front of our children. Maybe we have some concept that money is evil and it is not the stage to discuss with the child. So there are so many inhibitions among the mind of the parents. So in general families, you would have also observed that financial discussions and financial literacy takes a backseat.
100%. Also, financial transparency.
Yeah.
I feel like parents are not, they're just not openness ki, we close such a big contract, for example, or I got such a big promotion. वो बातें बहुत ही कम रहती है in an Indian household. Yeah.
So two healths are very important, your physical health and your financial health. Whatever we may say, both the healths, they go side by side. Our children should also be financially healthy and they should also be physically healthy. So for financial health, definitely we should teach the financial intelligence from the very beginning, from the inception, when the child's foundation is being laid. At that stage, we should instill the financial intelligence in the child. So we can start talking with small concepts. What is debit? What is credit? What is asset? What is liability? What is need? What is want? What is spending and what is saving? So these small concepts from the beginning, we should start discussing with the child. We can play with coins with the child. The child can have a piggy bank. We can open a small saving account for the child so that child understands. And also we should discuss the small concepts like what is budgeting. We should involve children once they grow up. As per with the age appropriation, we can involve children in our budget of the house. So what is budgeting? What is power of compounding? What is entrepreneur spirit? So all these things should also be told to the child once the children are growing. One thing is very clear, that formal education will give you bread and butter, but informal education will give you cakes and pastries. So informal education is extremely important. And in informal education comes your NLP skills, your self-regulation, problem-solving skills, and your financial skill, of course. And unfortunately, in schools and colleges, we are not taught about this informal education, which is very important. So I think regarding money and finances, we should discuss with transparency. You have rightly said that with transparency, we should discuss with children with transparency and honesty so that they understand that money is also physics. It is momentum. It is reality. So we should earn with ethical means. And, this thing should also be, and there is nothing wrong in earning money with your ethics and with your morality. So there is nothing wrong in that. So if once we imbibe at this stage, so children will become, I think, better human beings.
Which brings me to homeschool. A lot of parents have a lot of questions about homeschooling. Of course, there is a social aspect. The child will go to school, study with peers, interact with teachers. There's that interaction and social element. But a lot of parents find that actually homeschooling adds more layers of education, more layers of understanding to the child's life. What is your view on homeschooling?
You can supplement some of the homeschooling, but you can't ignore the schools. Once a child goes to the school, child learns a lot of things. A young child who is going to school, he will learn communication skills. He will learn language adaptations. He will learn how to channelize his emotions. He will learn how to collaborate and cooperate with other people. He will learn the team building spirit, leadership skills. So unless the child is interacting with the peer group, that they in nursery, they are, singing the rhymes together, they are painting together, and the children when they grow up. So it is extremely important. We can't ignore the social aspect of a school, because social development is very important and it is an on-job training. So if you really want that your child to have a good NLP skill, good optimistic skill, or good communication skill, the child has to go on job. The child has to go on the ground and meet people with the peer groups. The child needs to interact with them. So I think homeschooling, if certain things are not taught in the school, like informal education, you can teach at home. You can supplement with that. But I think total homeschooling and totally neglecting the school will not be an appropriate thing.
So basically a mix of the two.
Mix of the two will be better.
What about films? And for example, soap operas, जो background में चलते रहते हैं. Child is not actively watching a show, you're not actively watching, but वो चलते रहता है. And you see some scene somewhere. How do you know when is the right time to expose children to the real soap operas or the real films? Because till a certain age, so they're watching cartoons or they're watching Peppa Pig or these kind of things, right? So what is the right timing?
Look, it is very important to understand that children, they don't understand what is the difference between reality world and the virtual world. So I will give you an example. There had been examples where a child has tied a bed sheet and child has jumped, 8-year-old child has jumped from the roof thinking him to be a Superman. Because he has seen Superman. These have happened. One case has happened, 8-year-old child in Kanpur. He jumped from the roof of his school. Fortunately, he was saved with some injuries. So he tied a bed sheet and he jumped thinking himself to be a Superman. So we must understand that we should show the age appropriate content to the child. Because child doesn't have, the moment we show him the Spider-Man and this thing, so he can visualize that, this is reality and I can also become a Spider-Man or I can also become a Superman. So age appropriate content should be shown to the child, and whatever content we are showing, it should be under supervision of the parents. It is always important that parents should be there to supervise the content. It will be better if the mother sees the whole content before the child visualizes that content. So, and moreover, lot of factors, it depends on lot of factors, the emotional maturity of the child, the age of the child, the type of the content. So it is a kind of a tailor-made type of a decision which the parent should take, whether this content should be shown at this age or not. So it is very important to understand that age appropriate content should be shown, and the parent should use the privacy logs, and there are so many other logs available, and child should not be given the mobile or the laptop unsupervised. It can be very dangerous for the child.
Okay. So now that we have spoken for so long and touched on so many different topics, what do you think are the top 5 issues that you can foresee for future generations?
Look, for future generation, number one, what I'm foreseeing is the physical health of the future generation. Obesity is taking a toll. And I must tell you, obesity and overweight is not a single disease. It is a spectrum of diseases. So once a child is obese, and we must also understand 80% chances are that an obese child will become an obese adult also. So we have to control obesity at the inception of it. So it is very important during childhood only we should control the obesity of the child, because once obesity sets in, sooner or later type 2 diabetes, hypertension, over period of time myocardial infarction, what we call as heart attacks in layman term, or cerebrovascular accidents. And we should not ignore that if you have obesity, then you have 3 times more chances of developing certain kind of cancers. You are likely to have psychosocial problems. You are likely to have depression also. So obesity should be avoided and overweight should be avoided at all cost. Unfortunately, 1 out of every 4 to 5 children, they are either overweight or obese. So this is number one concern, which we should. And for that, the main, the culprit is our dietary habits, more of junk food, more of sugary drinks, less of fruits, vegetables, more of processed food. Processed food has basically sugar, salt, and refined carbohydrate and saturated fats. So all these with preservatives. So all these things should be curtailed. So number one worry for the future generation is obesity. Number 2 worry is, of course, the screen time and getting drowned into social media only. So it is very important that social media is a two-edged sword. So you can take advantage from the social media. Like if a mother is listening to our podcast, she will get more educated, so she can use it for her leverage. But on the other side, if she gets drowned in the social media with a lot of movies and series and this thing, then she will be killing time. So the second very important issue is, which is evolving more and more, is your screen time and you're getting drowned in the social media. Third very important aspect is the mental health of the people. Because the relationships and the way the society is evolving, the relationships might deteriorate over coming period, depressions might increase over coming period. So that is also very important aspect, which definitely concerns us. Of course, the other concerns are lack of activity, lack of physical exercise, lack of, the modalities like yoga and these things and outdoor activities. That is also a matter of concern. Last but not the least is how the things are evolving over coming period. We should also evolve our strategies accordingly, because now AI is coming. So our children should go to, those professions which are not likely to get obsolete. We should teach our children AI from now onwards. So it is very important how the things are evolving at a faster pace. The similarly faster pace, we should also fine-tune our parenting techniques, and we should also fine-tune the subjects which the child is studying. Maybe we should introduce nanotechnologies, robotics, or artificial intelligence in this thing, rather than the age-old subjects which might get obsolete over a period of time. So these are some of the worries I think every parent should be worried about.
Ravi uncle, I'm not a parent, but I've learned so much from you. And I think it's really helpful to add context to especially new parents who have so much to worry about and so much stress, and, they don't know which way to go. And every little thing about their child is so important and so crucial. So hopefully this podcast of ours has lightened the burden on some pediatricians out there, and they get answers on this. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to do a part 2 already with you. And it's just been so amazing. Thank you so much for your
Karishma,
time.
it has been a really proud privilege for me coming on your podcast, and I really enjoyed it. Every bit of it, I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So you will come back for a part 2.
Sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ravi
Thank you
uncle.
so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
We hope this episode added value to your lives. Join the Realign movement. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next one.